I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
All right.
Good morning.
Advertising. Thanks to Adolph.
Advertising. We got advertising. Thanks, Adolph, for that.
Yes.
Of course, we're coming up on tax season. As T.S. Eliot once said, April is the cruelest month. Welcome to another week of the week that was. My name is Saeed Khan, hosting a momentous week here in the Metro Detroit area where about 500,000 people are without power because we had Ice Stormageddon coming through. So I hope that you are safe. I hope that you are warm. And if you are listening to this, I hope that means that you do have power. And if you don't, we really appreciate you sacrificing your device battery life in order to hear us. So there you go. Joining us this week, we have pollster Ed Sarpolus. We have attorney Joel Sklar.
Yep.
We have host of the new podcast, Detroit in Black and White, available on Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the internet and via podcast networks, Adolph Mongo. Veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, who seemed quite excited about advertising for some reason. So
we are somebody.
Okay, Nancy, just telling you, Don Draper is not on the show. And Allan Lengel, the co-founder of Deadline Detroit. So let's get started with something relatively local here in the state of Michigan. I think, Allan, you can set it up with a very nice video clip.
Fraud in the 2022 election.
You may not always like me, but you know I'll keep my word. And that's what we need as chair and co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party. We need to fight to secure our elections. It's the reason I did not concede after the 2022 election. Why would I concede to a fraudulent process? Conceding to a fraudulent process is an agreement with the fraud, which I will not do.
So now the question.
That's right, folks. You weren't imagining it. White smoke did appear from the Sistine Chapel yet again. Here we find that the Michigan Republican Party has, in fact, elected its chair. It is none other than failed candidate for Michigan Secretary of State, Kristina Karamo, conspiracy theorist, QAnon maven, and supporter, and she is now the new boss. So what's going on with the Michigan GOP?
Well, you have someone, I'll speak first on this because I sort of lived down the street for a while. She's also a possession expert, too, of what happens, how you get possessed. And indeed, you won't remember that. And how you get possessed is very interesting. Okay? You need to know that. Well, the important thing is right now, if you go to the Republican Party headquarters, built by Peter Secchia and Juan Reiser, the fact is that it's closed. There's nobody in the building. The lights are off. The problem, the fact is they have millions of dollars of bills. She pissed off all the donors. So right now she's out trying to raise about $300,000 to get the doors open again. And also raise $2 million so they can do the Mackinac Island Conference come this September. That's where the party is right now.
Wow. Well, I think to be fair, Ed, I mean, you mentioned that she is an expert on possession. This is, after all, the 50th anniversary of The Exorcist. Yeah. So I think there is something cosmic about Kristina Karamo, pardon the alliteration, coming on board. Joel, what do you seem to be shaking your head slightly? What do you think about Kristina?
I think it's insane. I mean, I think it's just the Republic. You know, it's not even the Republicans. I don't know what the hell this is. It's not the Republicans that I knew or grew up with, obviously, and it's craziness. It's just giving the party to the complete wacky, insane, nuts, reality non-based entities, people, and it's off the cliff. Go ahead, jump.
Now, Adolph, you normally will go ahead and condemn the entire Republican Party as being your collective schmuck of the week. I think that this probably qualifies pretty heavily in there. What do you think about this development?
You know what this reminds me of? You can look back in history where you get the crazies and the racists and the folks that hate everybody. We go back to 48 where the Democrats down south split from the main party, became the Dixiecrats, and you had Henry Wallace with his Socialist Party. I think we're just going through that phase with the Republicans basically they have just given up on the state of Michigan. I believe they just conceded. Now they listen. They don't want DeVos's money. They don't want anybody's money. But yet they remind me of Jeffrey Feiger in '98, where Feiger beat.
Oh, we lost.
Lost his
He
audience.
won the nomination, and then at the end he said, "Okay, where the money?" They said, "Screw you! You get nothing from us. We don't care if England and everybody else win." And this is what they're doing to this new brand of fanatics, crazies, whatever you want to call them.
Well, one thing that's being lost on all this is that Karamo's victory is arguably a loss for Trump in the state of Michigan, because his guy for the seat was DePerno. So Nancy, you had your finger up.
I don't think that's a hair splitting question at this point. I think
that's what we do here, Nancy.
I know we do. I realize we do. Do I have any among the panel? Do I have any fellow fans of the movie Reds? 1980, Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty and Diane Keaton. Yeah. There's a great scene in Reds that I think of often when I see these kind of battles, and that's where I believe it's Paul Sorvino and Warren Beatty are fighting for it's a People's Republic of Judean People's Republic moment, where they're fighting over this rump faction of the left, as Diane Keaton calls it, the left of the left, and they're just having this absolutely pitched battle over a tiny segment of the American electorate, which was the American Communist Party. But in any event, I was reading this really good Paul Egan story where they in the Free Press today, where they dove into the campaign finance reports for the party and found that let's see. A Free Press analysis of state campaign finance records found the Michigan Republican Party has seen such a drop-off in its donor base that 58% of the money it raised from individual donors since 2018 came from just two sources, Ron Weiser and the DeVos family. That says something, because then Kristina Karamo gets up there in her victory speech and shit talks the DeVos's and Ron Weiser. So, I mean, what is that going to leave them? I mean, they're not going to be able to get $2 million for a fancy party on Mackinac Island. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is just going to be, this is the train going not just off the rails, but over the cliff and taking a lot of stuff with it.
Alan.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's basically, the Democrats should be sending thank you notes to everyone in the Republican Party. I don't get, the fringe people are really becoming mainstream. Marjorie Taylor Greene, we have here in Michigan. The attorney general candidate was a nut. She's a super nut. And they picked the super nut. When I saw the news flash on my phone, I was like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. You couldn't have picked the worst person to head the party to try to get it back together again. She's just a total off the rails kind of person. And that seems to be, what's going to happen to the Republican Party is a good question. I mean, they can't survive being a fringe party. And so I don't know if they're going to have to, and maybe Ed has the answer. How do the mainstream Republicans take the party back, or do they start a new party?
I think they walked away, but go ahead, Ed.
Here's what's going to happen. This happened to Democrats in the 90s. And because there was a separation between what was happening between party chairs and who was going to do what. And at the time I was working for a large association, and basically we created a party in waiting. Okay. We basically took over the party off the record, dealt with the races, got everything done. Betsy DeVos will basically, in the past, she'll get a group together and decide, okay, we're going to run the party in waiting. Okay. They'll start deciding what's going to happen, who they're going to fund, but they won't give money to the party unless the party agrees to certain specifics that they want them to do. So the people like Betsy DeVos is so invested. Ron Weiser too invested, because bottom line is a lot of these people like Ron Weiser, you look at board of regions, that type of thing. But what will happen is like what happened to the Democratic Party, because I've been part of this process with the Democrats. There'll be a party in waiting beginning to organize independent of the party. If the party wants any money, they're going to have to agree to certain circumstances. So Karamo may either have to step down or agree to have a co-partner in order to get any funds.
Huh. Wow.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, Satan gonna be her co-partner. That's about who she.
Well, you got to remember, this is C.S. Lewis. You have the little devil and you have the main devil. Okay.
But at the same time, I mean, is there a danger of the Democrats being a little bit too giddy about this moving forward?
There's always that danger.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't, I mean, you can't be too, you can't, it's like spiking the football before you know,
get to the end zone.
Get to the end zone. I mean, now that's not really a good metaphor, but yes, Ed knows more about this, but that's, you absolutely should not. I mean, bear down is what they should be doing.
The Democrats are pussy. Listen, they got control of the Senate in D.C. and they need to get rid of the filibuster and all this other stuff, and they don't do it. But when the Republicans get in power, they go
They go hard. Yeah.
They play. They don't play around. Democrats, we're gonna play by the rules. Now, when you got these assholes, you need to bury them.
Yeah.
They need to bury this party right now, and they need to push their agenda all the way through. Get rid of right to work and all this other stuff they said they was gonna do.
Yeah.
Well, given Adolph's characterization, go ahead, Allan.
I was just going to say real quick, Matt DePerno, I thought, wow. He seemed to be the guy who was going to get this, the head of the GOP in Michigan. And I thought, wow, they are really throwing things out the door. And I don't know why they took it to a whole other level. This woman is really, go ahead.
Before we move on, I want to shout out something about her co-chair, the woman in blue who was nodding behind her in her amen corner, that Melinda Pago, or I think it's Pago. She is, I believe, a Muskegon County commissioner and is notable. Somebody told me this, and I honestly did not believe them until they showed me the clips on it. She introduced during Black History Month, I believe last year, a resolution to honor a black slave owner from Muskegon Township, Muskegon County, who had been enslaved himself, somehow got his freedom, and then bought a bunch of slaves. Yeah, bought a bunch of slaves of his own, and was notable for his cruelty to them. That was one of the things that I read about him.
Well, that's a service person.
Pardon me?
You know, like you have a service dog. Yeah. That's a service person.
Yeah, he was this black slave owner, and she wanted him honored during Black History Month for his commitment to entrepreneurship. And honestly, I heard this and I'm like, I have reached the limits of my ability to comprehend these people when I read stuff like that. But fortunately, it died by a whatever to one vote, but still.
Does this, Nancy, does this have to do with your long held aversion to black neoliberals?
That's a pretty obscure reference.
Are you killing the entrepreneurial spirit? Damn it! How can you do that? And by the way, Nancy, I mean, just be comforted that the Sorvino did survive Reds in order to form his own family in Goodfellas.
Yes,
he did do that. Well, given Adolph's characterization of the Democrats, perhaps it seems that Trump then has less ability to go ahead and grab them in the state of Michigan, because current polls show that Ron DeSantis is actually leading him by 5 points. I know that this is going to be a little bit of profiling, Ed, but you are our resident pollster. What say you of this development?
What I say for me is the fact that Ron DeSantis is leading temporarily because the fact he has yet to figure out how to organize anything. When he came out this week and talked about supporting Putin, Putin is not our threat. He hurt himself right now. So the bottom line is, Ron DeSantis is up because a lot of the people in Michigan that are Republican that called me the day of the Saturday, they were at home because they didn't want to participate in organizing their local party. So basically, Karamo had a chance to organize because all the Republicans stayed at home. Ron DeSantis is going to have a problem in the state because the crazies are not going anywhere. Ron DeSantis has the problems how he gets them motivated to show up. Remember, Ron DeSantis is no Bernie Sanders of the Democratic, like Bernie Party was, to get out the vote. So Ron DeSantis got to figure out how is he going to raise the money and get out the vote in Michigan. So don't write off Trump yet in a primary. Also this, remember, we're going to have a caucus most likely in Republican next year, and we're not going to have a primary for Republicans because the party is not going to give them they're going to give half the delegates because they're going to change their date of their primary. Republican Party says no Michigan. So you may have nothing happening in Michigan because nobody's going to come to the state because
they're going to have, so they'll end up with a caucus which will nominate Trump.
Yes.
Not DeSantis. So, yes. Okay. Interesting.
That doesn't sound very democratic to me.
It's not. But they don't believe in democracy. Saeed, speaking of Ron DeSantis, did you read that he now wants to, he's now marching on the universities? Aren't you glad you're not a professor in Florida right now?
I'm glad I'm not even at Disney World right now in Florida.
Put your Muslim ass behind bars.
Yes, that's why. I mean, now that you mention it, Nancy, that's why when I fly domestic, that's the one state that I need a visa to enter. Yes.
well, Ron DeSantis is the new George Wallace. And I'm gonna tell you, he's playing to the fears of a base that want to go back to the good old boy days.
Right.
And so anything they don't want to talk about anything before 1970. Slavery was great. They gave jobs to black people. They fed them and stuff. Rosa Parks was a communist. Martin Luther King was controlled by the Soviets. This is their version of history. Ron DeSantis is the new George Wallace, and I think that a lot of conservative Republicans are scared of Ron DeSantis because they know that this is not going to go well nationally. It plays great in Florida. He can talk all he want to talk about getting rid of teachers, and they firing state attorneys, etc. But we'll see how it plays when he leaves the confines of that little home area of his.
This is why it's so important that the Democrats keep their shit together. I still really believe that it's time for a true open primary. Let the blood spill.
Yes.
We need to have a alternative to Joe Biden. I feel like, I mean, he's 80 now. He'll be 82.
And he looks
82.
I don't think Grandpa's running.
I think he is running, but you know,
you need to take the key. You need to take the keys from him. You just like you would do your father that can't drive anymore, that can't see. You take the keys, or you take the battery out the car, or whatever you do. You stop them from getting under the wheel. This is what they're going to have to do to Joe Biden.
The problem.
Who's
exactly. That's the question.
Here's what's going to happen.
There's not a strong bench out there.
Well, right now, all you've got is spiritualist Miss Williams that's announced that she's running for president.
Marianne Williams?
Yes, she's announced that she's running for president.
She got a great agenda, but I don't see anybody electing her.
No, because you're going to have to be in a yoga position to meditate on what you're going to do that day of the vote.
Well, the next 2 years, we're going to hear 3 words over and over and over again. And Allan, I think you should cue up your other video.
Okay, here, let me get that cooking here.
Of Hunter Biden's laptop story. FBI subpoenaed Hunter Biden's laptop. Regarding Hunter Biden's laptop.
Hunter Biden's laptop.
Hunter Biden laptop. Hunter Biden laptop. Hunter Biden laptop. Hunter Biden laptop. Hunter Biden laptop.
Maybe Hunter Biden's laptop is the GOP's safe word. They're repeating it like an undercover cop who's in danger. Hey, what are you talking about? I'm not a cop. I'm a drug dealer, just like you. Hunter's laptop. Hunter's laptop. Hunter's laptop. Get me out of here. I'm about a laptop.
But I mean, they're going to chip away at him. And, you know, stuff like this, you didn't go to East Palestine, Ohio after the train crash. P.S. That is a story I don't even understand. I've kind of stopped reading about it because I feel like the right wing is pushing it for one reason, the far left wing is pushing it for another reason, and I don't know who to believe anymore at this point. But anyway,
well, the blame game is pretty heavy. I mean, trying to signal to Pete Buttigieg don't try running because we're going to hang this over you.
Right.
And then, of course, finding out how much Trump did to deregulate the railroad sector.
Exactly.
So you got that. Everyone would ask if the Republican Party's really changed over the last 40 years. I think that they have. 40 years ago, they would have gone after Hunter Biden's typewriter. So,
well, we do have a good quote from Sylvester Stallone that's saying that Trump's water tastes like, pardon expression, piss. Okay, and he wouldn't drink it.
By the way, Ed, speaking of Sylvester Stallone, the turtles that he had in the original Rocky movie are still alive 40 years later.
Yep.
Wow. Well, turtles live a long time, don't they?
Well, they're nominated for a Grammy.
Those turtles may be a backup for Joe Biden.
There you go. Slow motion.
So happy together. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay. This is a legal question, especially for you, Joel.
Sure.
What do you do about a chatty catty Georgia grand jury foreperson who's going around and taking every possible media interview that she can, talking in either cryptic or clear terms about the Georgia grand jury investigation of January of the elections, and about what Trump and his acolytes might have done to try to lean on the Georgia Secretary of State?
Yeah, I mean, it's she should shut up. Obviously, she shouldn't be saying anything. She's free to say things. She's a citizen, can go out and touch whatever else she wants. But it's foolish, and it makes the system seem clownish to an extent because she seems somewhat erratic. It doesn't change the substance of what's going to happen, I hope. I think the evidence is probably remarkably strong. I think there will be indictments, and I hope that she's foreshadowing something that is true. But again, it's something to point to stylistically and say, God, I wish she'd shut the hell up. But other than that, it means nothing.
I agree with Joel. I think, look, the grand jury's already done their work. Now it goes to a real grand jury to present to them. I don't see, if anything, people are saying, oh my God, this will derail the case. It won't derail the case. It's all, look, worst came to worst. I don't think she's violated the law there in Georgia. She hasn't.
Well, the judge this morning said she didn't. The judge said this morning she didn't. Right. The judge said she could have said a lot more.
Right. And look, they released part of the report. It's a different kind of grand jury. We don't see in the federal grand juries, we don't see them releasing, particularly before any charges, and definitely, unless a judge were to say, okay, I'm going to unseal grand jury material, which normally is rare, I think. There's nothing that's going to happen. She needs to kind of tone it down and let the prosecutors do their business and not interfere. She was talking about on TV how giddy she was about meeting Rudy Giuliani and saying, I have to shake your hand, Mr. Giuliani. She's in awe of yeah. So, right, yeah. But I don't see it in any way that can, worst came to worst, if she violated the law, she'd be charged. I don't think it changes the substance of the grand jury.
Only it may change is people's understanding of how grand juries work and how juries work generally, which is you get a group of people and God knows what you get, and this is what comes out, and that's how the sausage is made, man. That's what they're going on from that.
As Fishman has pointed out over and over on this show, the Georgia case is as close to an open and shut case as they get because they have them on tape.
That and being able to indict a ham sandwich, according to the Fish, on Meatless Friday today. But this idea that she is the starry-eyed, apparently reports say that Emily Coors, by the way, is her name, and Ms. Coors did not vote in the last election, which probably then gave her a semblance of impartiality. But she reminded me, unfortunately, of Paula in Saturday Night Fever, who comes up to Tony in the disco and says, I just love to watch you dance, Tony. I think she just is a little bit starry-eyed by the process. So there's a 70s reference for you. So speaking of investigations, Special Counsel Jack Smith is issuing subpoenas to former first children and son-in-law, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, in the January 6th probe.
Oh my God, Jared, what am I going to wear? Okay, go ahead.
You're going to have to give me a minute after that, Nancy.
Sorry.
Well, given Jared's persona being a sphinx, I'm not sure he was going to respond to her. But I mean, at this point, as the investigation is going forward with Jack Smith, I mean, he seems to be certainly tenacious. He certainly seems to be almost airtight when it comes to any kind of leaks. I know we have talked about this ad nauseum on the show, but are we approaching an end game with this, and where are the possibilities of indictments?
My first reaction is
Sorry.
going to be the fact that I think Jack Smith is locking down the testimony before he goes any further, because the fact that Ivanka was not very clear in her answers when she before the January 6th. This is a grand jury. She'd be under oath. My understanding, she may not have been under oath the last time, and she'll have to ask more direct questions. So I think he's beginning to lock in testimony for no surprises down the road. And because you got to remember, he also already submitted things to the court about Pence's not wanting to testify. Jim, he's doing all the advance work, so he's not going to be delayed 2 months when the things really come out. We don't want to testify.
But there is the prospect of raising the executive privilege defense. I mean, after all, Ivanka was some kind of special advisor, and so was Jared.
Well, that's why Jack is doing this, because he wants to get everything locked down. And matter of fact, he already filed something. It's Pence's ability to go ahead forward and say that he's not going to testify. So Jack is really working in advance. It's like playing chess. He's thinking 3 or 4 moves down the road.
But is this going to be like
I think
investigation? You think, where there was a lot of expectation, there was a lot of Mueller's all tough, he's strong, he's silent. Is this where we're going? Like the Mueller investigation that we had, with Trump early on.
Well, I think that the Mueller investigation. I mean, it was sad because in the end, Mueller's like, well, I don't want to say anything, but maybe. I think this guy is different. I think Mueller became too entrapped in his image of being Mr. Straight down the middle. I mean, Mueller needed to come out and say, there's obstruction of justice charges here that need to come forward at some point here.
Right,
that was a disgrace. I was so disappointed that Mueller took that tack. But I think Jack Smith is a lot more aggressive.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But I mean, in fairness to Mueller, I mean, he was doing his investigation while being part of, the Trump administration going on around him, and the amount of obfuscation of people like Jeff Sessions and others to be able to get the investigation, and then of course Barr, meant that weren't his hands a little bit more tied?
Yeah, possibly, but yeah. I think so.
Well,
a little bit more, but afterwards, after the report, he came before Congress. He could have been a little bit more forthright. He could have been a little bit more assertive, and I thought that's where he really fell. I think a lot of people were disappointed with him.
Can anybody name any special prosecutor that did a great job?
Pat Fitzgerald out of Chicago.
Archibald Cox tried.
He tried, but for some reason they get stalled, they get roadblocked, starstruck, or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You were talking about, these people like Ivanka and everybody, limiting their testimony, and Mike Pence limiting their testimony. There's precedent there, and I covered one of the cases where Congressman William Jefferson in New Orleans, they raided his office, and what happened is they set up a special team that screened documents that had nothing to do with any of the criminal activity. And I think what's going to happen here, there may be some limitations, some boundaries set, but criminal activity is not protected by any of these claims. So,
and that's going to be the argument, that there's fraud and crime and all sorts of that awful things.
Right.
Well, here's another potential crime. Turns out that according to the Washington Post, former Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich withheld a report showing that there was no fraud in the 2020 elections. And obviously, Arizona became a hotbed to the point where it could, in fact, impact Fox News, given the fact that they're right now caught in a massive defamation case involving Dominion. A lot of it having to do with the fact that Fox called the race for Biden pretty early on, raising the ire of so many Republicans everywhere. But this seems absolutely blatant. I mean, an attorney general going ahead and burying a report as though this was the movie Jagged Edge to show no fraud. You can tell I've been flying around a lot and I've been watching a lot of movies. But by the way, recommendation, Bullet Train. Anyways.
Okay.
Yeah. Great movie. But the actual idea that there was nothing, and think of the millions of dollars that have been expended and the lie that continues, especially with people like Carrie Lake, who apparently now in Arizona is thinking about running for the Senate seat. So against Kristen Sinema, which of course some people are like, well.
Oh my God. What a choice. Oh my God! Between those two,
Nancy, we're already crowdfunding so that we can buy you the ticket to go cover the debate in Phoenix.
What's amazing about the AG in Arizona, the fact that he was using the suppression so he could run for office and talk about fraud. He leveraged the hiding of the data for his run for office and raise money. Because remember, he was running for two offices. One didn't work and one for the next. So he was doing it intentionally for his run for office to raise money.
Wow.
And now
this was for his side office? This was for his side office?
Yeah.
And now in Arizona, they want to pass, the Republicans want to make it illegal for the Secretary of State when running for re-election to be in charge of the election.
Yeah.
So they planned it.
I wonder if Carrie Lake is going to be the VP candidate with Trump.
Either her, and maybe we could have like a cage match between her and
Marjorie
Green.
Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. The two of them, right? Just.
I mean, I think Carrie Lake's a lot smarter.
Last bitch standing, man.
The week that was smarter, the week that was brought to you by Fantasy Friday, according to Nancy. But I mean, seriously, I mean, there are quite a few candidates. I mean, Kristina Karamo, Carrie Lake, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, who said that Mitt Romney was the only one who had a binder full of women?
Well, they could bring Sarah Palin back from the dead.
I read somewhere that Carrie Lake's husband is a videographer. That's where they met. He was like a camera operator at the station in Arizona where she was an anchor. And he handles all of her video appearances, which may explain why she always seems to be behind a sepia filter. You know, whenever she drops these videos, and she always looks a little bit beige. You know, like she has a liver disease or something. It's kind of
no. Be fair, Allan was in Scottsdale, and he's got himself a very fine tan there, which could be CSC.
Very much.
I was going to mention a little quick story about it. I may have said this before, but when Sarah Palin was running in 2008, I was talking to my mother. I was in D.C. I was talking to my mother in Detroit. And she said, you know, that's Sarah Palin. She thinks she's such a big shot. But you know what? In Alaska, even I could be a big shot.
That's right. Sarah's kind of sad these days.
Mitt Romney, I mean, to me, I look, I'm saying, you know, Mitt Romney ran. Wouldn't he gather some support? Wouldn't the mainstream Republicans say, thank God it's Romney? I mean, why isn't a guy like that in the conversation? He seems... He lost before flying to Obama. He may not lose again. I mean, why isn't that type of Republican?
I don't think he wants it.
He's shell shocked, right? He's shell shocked. These Republicans, listen. He's a voice of reason, but yet it seems like he's afraid to get out there and really duke it out with these folks.
He can't. He's not. You know, this party has really scrubbed any moderates out of there. He has no place in this party. He's lucky to hold on to what he's got right now.
The other thing that Mitt Romney's also looking at the fact that he'll be like 76 years old next year. Okay,
he's a kid. He's a you know. I mean, Biden.
He's a youngster. I know that, but I'm just saying.
It's clean living, clean Mormon living. There you
go. Mitt Romney was in nursery school when Biden was in Congress.
I think you know the question is really with Mitt Romney. You know, I mean, I'd be shocked at this point that he would change parties, but he's he's closer to being as today a Democrat than a Republican. What the Republicans are, today.
He would survive re-election.
Right.
There's no Democrats in Utah or Wyoming or wherever he's from.
Right. Utah, I guess.
Well, born in Mexico, but I think that the real reason he's not running or putting in a bid is I think he really wants to be the next James Bond.
It looks great.
There you go. And, now that Idris Elba is like taking himself out of the running, I think it's Mitt Romney.
Look, he president of the next Olympics, in a couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, he's got in common with Roger Moore that their hair never moves. So
you got that. Well, the Democrats and Republicans got the same problem. How are they going to get rid of Trump and Biden?
Right.
And who are they replace him with?
Yeah. Right. I don't think our bench is as weak as was it Allan?
I say.
I don't think it's that bad. I think
who do you see as potentials?
Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom,
Whitmer.
Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, she could probably pull it off. I mean, there's quite a few impressive Democrats who are not.
Well, we haven't had this problem since when an unknown governor came out of nowhere in Georgia and hijacked the party.
Right. And then an unknown state senator from Illinois came along and took the country by storm. We need another Obama. So he's out there. She's out there somewhere.
When Obama delivered the speech at the Democratic convention when he was a state senator, I mean, people saw right away. It was like, open the gates, let this man.
Yeah, he was a star. Right.
Yeah. When does Malia turn 35?
Well, what about Hillary trying? Well, she's what, 78?
Yeah,
76. Yeah,
she's got the same problem. It's time for the boomers to leave, and I know almost everybody here is a boomer except for Saeed. So, and I say that with love.
Yeah, and remember, Hillary's going to be with Hillary in Abu Dhabi this week, or with the women's conference. So
it's time for us to move on to the great Adirondack chair on the national porch and let the kids take over.
So. Yeah, absolutely.
First teach the kids how to spell Adirondack, and I think then we're going to be halfway.
They got spell check, they're fine.
So that's a word that they probably should already know before they get to college campuses. But if you think about Texas State Representative Carrie Isaacs, she has a different idea in mind when it comes to what is and what is not permitted on campus. She is introducing a bill in the Texas State Legislature which would ban college campuses from being voting sites. So how's that when it comes to making democracy more accessible and available? The whole idea.
What is her point?
The point is that's nothing new, because we looked at here in Michigan where, as a college student, you could vote while you were on campus, and the Republicans did their little magic and stuff. And listen, there's nothing new that the Republicans want an edge on everything. So get rid of the college students vote. Don't put the machines on campus. Make it hard for them, or they have to go back to their hometown and vote.
It's the same part of it. It's an extension of voter suppression of blacks.
Okay, I didn't know if there were different state laws in Texas. I know they allow it here, and that was somebody last week. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. Was talking about these apathetic college students, but as I recall, in November there were like 4 and 5 hour waits in both East Lansing and Ann Arbor to vote. So
Well, in Georgia, you go to jail if you get somebody some water that's standing in line to vote, and it's 100 degrees outside.
I would look forward to going to jail for that.
The whole idea that, there's a really sinister tracking going on. If you take a look at the slow restrictions to abortion by making it more difficult, more inaccessible. This is now another fundamental right that seems to be targeted. The whole idea about voting becoming more difficult, and who knows to what extent that's going to occur.
Well, the Republicans in South Carolina want to charge $500 for every new resident that come in from the north or whatever. They call it a Yankee tax. So these folks, they got this agenda, and that's what I'm saying. The difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, the Republicans, they got the nuttiest agenda and they pushing it. The Democrats sit back and here you have an opportunity to squash these bugs, and they don't do it.
Right.
And Marjorie just put a proposal to the fact that if you move into a state the year of the election, you can't vote.
You have to wait 5 years. I thought her big whole thing was, and again, for the Republicans, it's the ends justifies the means. I think for Democrats, the means matter.
You know what? The suppression is endless. I mean, in Texas, they were trying to eliminate some of the drop boxes. Look, DC does not have statehood. They have no representation. They have one delegate who gets to vote in committee, but not on the floor. They have
a great license plate out of it. They really do.
Taxation without representation, and it's insane. They have no senators. They have no real Congress members. Their population is bigger than some states. I think at least 2 states.
Wyoming,
Delaware, Rhode Island.
And the Republicans have blocked that for ages, and it's so outrageous. Having been a resident there for over 14 years, it was outrageous. There was no representation there.
Can't even vote.
And when the marijuana was legalized, it was voted by the people in DC. Congress blocked that for a while. They stepped in and blocked that. I mean, how insane is that?
Well, they control it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta go. Have a good weekend.
All right.
Adolph,
take care, Adolph.
All right, Adolph.
Okay, thank you.
Don't forget Adolph's show tomorrow.
That's right. Saturday, 10 a.m. It is called Detroit in Black and White.
And I don't want to hear that nasty word 9-10 anymore.
Bye, Adolph.
All right.
Did he fall out with Kevin Adele too?
Me?
Yeah. No. Did he? Did Adolph fall out?
Well, you know what? He was talking about doing a podcast. Adolph's been doing the show for 7 years. And then he was talking, there was some rumors about a podcast. Kevin called him up. We did the show on Saturday. And then literally 1 minute after the show was done, Kevin sent out email to everyone saying Adolph is no longer have anything to do with the station.
That guy.
And I think he was the best rated show, certainly on Saturdays.
He was like the human resources department from hell, Kevin Adele. He really is. That's how we do it. Yeah. I remember when we were working at Deadline and.
Oh yes, you got a great story.
Nolan Finley learned that he had been fired by us calling him and reading him a press release.
Yeah. Well, then also you were working on a story on Kevin Adele.
Yes, and he threatened to bring his remote broadcasting truck to my house and park it outside with Sam Riddle inside. I said, just come on over. I said, Grosse Pointe police love to deal with people harassing the locals. But go ahead. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to derail us. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. I mean, given the mundane life I lead, obviously now. So here's an interesting case at the U.S. Supreme Court. Gonzalez versus Google. In 2015, there was, of course, the attack on the Bataclan nightclub / concert hall, where ISIS stormed it and dozens and dozens of people were killed, including Nohemi Gonzalez, a teenage American student, I believe, at the time there. And so her family is suing Google on the pretense that social media can be and should be held accountable for helping to promote or project terrorism through YouTube clips that until that time had not been banned or filtered out by social media companies. YouTube's parent company, of course, being Alphabet or Google. And it seems as though the Supreme Court justices are genuinely perplexed about this, that Kavanaugh and Kagan, for example, on either side of the ideological divide, both seem to have a consensus saying, yeah, we don't know what to do with this. Where do you see this idea going about accountability, and especially when it comes to social media companies?
I think it's going to be, I think it's dangerous, quite frankly. You have a First Amendment right. It's difficult. It sounds attenuated to me. It may be an issue because social media is pervasive and it does shape our thoughts and our expectations. But imposing legal liability, I think, is that's
going to be really, really hard.
I think you just have. I mean, again, I think it's a First Amendment issue, and I think again, in order to have some sort of responsibility, there has to be some proximate causation. You have to show that this was actually the cause of the problem or a cause of the problem. That's rough. There's a lot of intervening causes. There's a lot of other reasons. God knows what was going on. I just think it's very messy. If they say yes, thank God, because then I'll be able to sue whatever the hell I want. But I don't think it's happening.
Well, what's amazing, the fact that this issue is actually tied to the whole Hunter Biden case with all the Twitter debates in Congress and the special committees. Did you stop the Twitter? Why did you ban Trump? I mean, so basically, this is being debated in Congress as well as in the Supreme Court, because technically, in some cases, it's the same issue.
Right.
When is
I mean,
when we were talking about podcasts before, at least a year, maybe 2 years ago, the New York Times dropped a podcast called Rabbit Hole. And what happened was they had their tech writer, one of their tech writers, they have a lot of them, go get this young man who had been kind of radicalized by YouTube. He allowed them to download his entire YouTube history, which is an astonishing thing to allow. It's like letting somebody go through your underwear drawer. And they went through it and they traced this arc that was based on the YouTube algorithm of serving you, well, if you like this video, you might like this other video. And they queue these up to you. The idea is to keep your eyes on the site and just make sure that the ads keep rolling for you, because that's good for them. But, this guy had some kind of warehouse job where he was allowed to wear earbuds all day and, listen to whatever, music or whatever. And he would just listen to these podcasts all day long, day after day, week after week, month after month. And it didn't take too long for him to start believing in things like, that men are criminally oppressed in the United States, that women, are not qualified to lead, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he fell into the men's rights rabbit hole, but it was a fascinating look at how, even a fairly reasonable person, I mean, this guy was a little aimless, he was the typical young man of the 21st century, but, how he was able to be led by the nose down this rabbit hole. And so when I hear this argument that this never would have happened if these people hadn't been listening to, ISIS bullshit, all day long, I'm part of me says, you got a point. I don't know if it's enough of a point that, you can essentially neutralize the entire internet over it, but it is interesting.
I remember when he did his show, didn't he get fired up to do all sorts of things and suggest things? I mean, couldn't equally say that anybody who inspires me to do something is liable for that inspiration that they gave me? That's the spark that caused me to light the fuse.
You broke up a little bit at the beginning. Who were you talking about?
Oh, Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, Rush Limbaugh, right?
Departed, and again, I heard his shows. They were full of sound and fury, and they can get people motivated to do all sorts of bad things. So, are we going to?
And a lot of bullshit.
Would he have had liability? I don't think so.
Right.
Well, I look how I look after I watch your show. After I go through withdrawals the next 3 days, which you've encouraged me to do once I listen to your podcast, so I understand the impact.
Yes, but Ed, we radicalize people to become more appealing to sapiosexuals. But we've treaded down this road before. I remember in the 1980s there was a slew of lawsuits against bands and musicians for their lyrics allegedly being tied to suicides. So Tom Petty, I think. Led Zeppelin, a few different bands, and it was interesting that it was Dee Snider from Twisted Sister who came to the defense of this, and also Frank Zappa, rest in peace, when it came to that. Alan, you had your hand up.
I was going to say it's an endless debate over social media, whether it's really a public right, a public forum, or whether it's privately held. is it privately held? And you know, when back in the day when we had, you know, newspapers and TV, I mean, we determined when we went out to do a story, we might interview 20 people and pick 3 that we quote. Letters to the editor, they selected who had a voice. Now, you know, it's the Wild West out there on the internet, and particularly with social media platforms, we're trying to figure out, does everyone, I mean, the Republicans seem to have an argument that this is a public forum, that no one has a right to block anything. Right. And at the same time, it's a privately held, these are privately held companies. And are they obligated to have some kind of standard? And I think we have not, you know, the laws are so vague. So we are still wrestling with this thing, and the internet being really, I mean, over, you know, maybe 25, 30 years old already, really, as we know it. You
know, back in the 60s, the BBC would censor what songs could be played. A great movie called Pirate Radio, also known as The Boat That Roared. Oh, yeah, right. But what it did cause then was a bunch of boats to dock off in international waters off the coast of England, including Radio Caroline, in order to broadcast. With the internet, I think what may end up happening if the Supreme Court then starts to suppress social media is you're going to find Radio Carolines moored elsewhere, offshore, or in other countries that would welcome there to be a greater platform for Google and for Meta and some of these companies. So wait to see what happens there. But I would be remiss if I didn't add this as a story. Roald Dahl, who I'm sure we have all at some point read his books, the publisher had been pressured to go ahead and rewrite the books to remove offensive content, including to not refer to Augustus Gloop for being fat. An update on this story, though, is that the publisher has decided to not double down, but in fact relent and withstand all of this kind of woke and cancel culture pressure, and has decided to go ahead and republish the books in their pristine form. So Augustus Gloop, still fat. Violet Beauregard, still a gum-snapping, odious child. I mean, if you're going to go ahead and update these books, make Mike TV Mike Streamy, because nobody watches TV anymore. But apparently, the publisher did say that we're going to publish 2 versions. One which is going to be the redacted version, and the other which is going to be the real version. So next Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever is the holiday of your choice, and you're planning on giving some educational books to kids, you do have some choices there.
Can I point something out about this whole story? Because you said they were bowing to woke pressure. Yes. I never saw any evidence of this woke pressure. What I heard is that the publisher showed these books to what they're now called a new job, which is now called sensitivity reader, which a lot of publishers are using now, where they are, you know, giving unpublished text to these people to kind of sniff out things that, you know, hidden bombs that might explode after the thing is published, you know, if somebody uses the wrong language about this or that. And the sensitivity reader was the one who said we should change this. And so they were motivated not by an effort to not offend people or by the woke counterculture, but they were by their own capitalist impulses to sell more Roald Dahl books. So
I stand corrected. I didn't realize that they had an in-house Ellen Jamesian society.
They do.
I'm just amazing how we weren't all corrupted as kids, from National Lampoon to Mad Magazine, all the little
Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's like we were all corrupted, or Rocky and Bullwinkle. I mean, come on, we were corrupted every day.
Trust me, Ed. Mad Magazine explains me.
You still got your stickers underneath?
What, me worry?
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we go to our last segment, we'd like to hear a word from our sponsor.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
Don't lose your house to tax foreclosure.
Just because we knew that we had to play it again because Nancy gets so excited by advertising. All right. And Allan, I think we're at that time of the show now.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
I don't know what Mr. Sabri is going to think that his ad is sponsoring that. But here we go. Ed, who's your schmuck of the week?
Speaker McCarthy turning over 40,000 hours of video to the great truth taker, Fox News.
Tucker Carlson.
How does he get away with
Specifically
that?
Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
How did
Tucker
he get
Carlson.
away with that? I've never seen that before. If you release something, you release it to the media.
And only one outlet.
Right.
And
only
one person.
Only
Not even a news anchor.
one
Yeah,
person.
one
It's it's outrageous. It really is just really
They should push
corrupt.
to release it to like all media then in that case. You know,
because all media matters.
Well, I would like to see what an outlet like, I mean, the New York Times, the Washington Post, you know, the big money national outlets have done some fantastic work on the January 6th stuff. And I mean, they, you know, with computer models and, you know, all this stuff, great graphics. I'd like to see what they could do with the whole shebang.
I think we should all be able to have access to it if Tucker Carlson gets access to it.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
paw through it.
Joel, you know, you could have had access to it if you had been there on January the 6th.
So I
shame. Yeah,
I want to see gifs of what's his face? Who was the guy? Cotton, the guy who ran across. Like a frightened little rabbit that he is. I think that would have been.
Well,
I want that in my signature block of all my emails.
As in Peter Cottontail.
Yeah.
Well, the reason that Kevin McCarthy gave, though, I think is one that we should have a little bit more respect for. He says the reason I gave it, I promised.
Well, he's a man of his word. So,
He is a. Someday they're going to reprint the dictionary, and the definition of feckless will have his name right there.
Incredible. Nice. Feckless. Okay, Nancy, who's your schmuck then?
Okay, well, I have two, but I heard that Lengel is taking my number one choice. I'm going to go with my B team here, which is State Representative Larissa Sweet of District 50 in the state of my former occupancy, Indiana, who has introduced and successfully pushed through I think it's a resolution to the Indiana budget bill to strip funding from the Kinsey Institute, which lots of people don't realize is based at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And they want somehow to disentangle the funding that they give to IU in general from the Kinsey Institute because it's dirty. It's very dirty, and it's involved in the abuse of children, which is, of course, not true. It is true that Alfred Kinsey, when he was making his landmark reports in the 40s and 50s, did interview pedophiles in the course of taking his sexual histories from something like 18,000 Americans, but that doesn't make them complicit in sexual abuse of children. And but more to the point, it's a great asset for IU, and Indiana, the state as a whole doesn't deserve it, but IU as an institution does. They've, various other hayseeds have been trying to pull public support from it for years. This one may well go through, we don't know, but Larissa Sweet, first term Indiana State Representative, you are my schmuckette of the week.
Yeah. And a hayseed.
She has a degree. I looked her up. She has a degree in animal agribusiness from Purdue University, and she owns a dog grooming business. Pet grooming business. So
beautiful groomer.
So
well, animal husbandry, I mean, is probably one of the most salacious fields ever. So
it's animal agribusiness, not animal husbandry. But yeah, so and nothing against pet groomers because I've relied on them in the past, but I just think this is
so basically then you're just making animal sex into a consumer product. So,
yeah,
okay. Got it. All right.
Them.
Yes, we're grooming. Yes.
Right.
Joel, who's your schmuck of the week?
Mine is the lowest hanging fruit. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's on the ground. It's the suggestion that we secede and red states, blue states. It's the insanity and the just it's so beyond the pale. I can't believe it's being uttered by a sitting congressperson.
Yep.
It's just it's shit like, forgive me, shit like this that terrifies me. It's like
well, and you know what,
this war is still going on, clearly, and you want to have I just can't wrap my head around it.
What does that say for a swing state, or at least a former swing state like Michigan? Would we get to choose?
Right. And what about all those people that voted blue in your little red state?
Yeah.
What about those people?
And also, I think
what's
most
so
red
funny
states are donor states anyway. So
yeah, that's the matter of fact. Yesterday they did the economic analysis. All the red states would go out of business because they wouldn't get any money from the blue states.
Right.
They did it. It was so funny, that analysis. It's kind of amazing. The only one that makes it through benefits is Kentucky, because Mitch McConnell, despite being a sort of a red state, he still steals from the blue state. So
right. Completely nuts. So that was
oi. Okay, Alan.
James Muir. Mine is Nancy. This was actually Nancy's as well, but she was nice enough to give it to me. George Santos, for declaring he wants the AR-15 to be the national gun of America, which, first of all, is just insanity. We need to ban assault weapons like AR-15s. There's no need for them. And people say, well, it's, there's so many out there. Well, you have to start somewhere. You have to start cutting out the supply somewhere, whether the benefits are a year from now or whatever. And you shouldn't allow anyone to walk into a fucking Walmart or whatever and buy one of those things. And so I was texting with a friend yesterday trying to figure out, like, what is it? What's his strategy here? And maybe he's thinking he's got to find a base where the base is going to say, we don't care if he's a lying sack of shit.
I'll send him $50.
Yes,
right.
he's for us. He likes guns. He wants the AR-15, and I think he's in search of a base that will defend him regardless. There's no defense for that guy. It's insane that he's allowed to roam the halls of Congress.
Yeah. He's been giving interviews this week talking about his my career as a liar. So
and how he's a bad liar. But I mean, Alan, don't you think that that's about as potentially successful as an Ayatollah with a Book of the Month club?
He's co-sponsoring the bill.
I mean, are you really going to go ahead and follow the recommendations on that one? I don't know. All right. Well,
when I think of that, I always think of there was an old Jewish sports reporter in Washington for the Washington Star, Mo Siegel, and he was asking the Buffalo Bills coach Marv Levy if he was Jewish, and Marv Levy said, "Not anymore." And Mo said to him, "Sorry. Being Jewish is like joining the Book of the Month club. Once you're in it for life."
Oh man! So
true too.
Did he leave Judaism after 4 losses?
Right.
Is that what it is? Right. All right. Well, I'm glad that I went ahead and I listed more than one Schmuck of the Week choice, because 2 of them have now been taken, which is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and flip a coin and go with. I could either go British or I could go American.
American.
Okay. So the British one, just because I know, Nancy, you're going to want to know, is Prince Andrew, because he won't leave his lodging, which is the Royal Lodge at Windsor, where he pays, wait for it, a whopping £250 per week to live there.
Okay.
Yes. So no wonder he's
in the castle. Wow.
It's on the property, but that's literally the cheapest place to live in London.
Does he get kitchen privileges for that?
I think he gets a valet, and a butler. But my Schmuck of the Week, with no irony of himself being a Nepo baby, is Donald Trump Jr., who decided to go on a right-wing media outlet and assail Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg for
all the while doing this thing with his fingers.
The while with his fingers, yes, regarding the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment. By saying, well, the only reason that he got the job is because he's the gay guy. And of course, Biden was trying to fill the quota of being a gay guy. And I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but this was how he was trying to impugn Pete Buttigieg. Secretary Buttigieg has made no secret that he is, in fact, gay and that he is happily married and, in fact, is a resident of the state of Michigan up in Traverse City, where he and Chasten are raising a family. But the fact that this was his version of going ahead and virtue signaling, so to speak, and throwing shade on the Secretary of Transportation without, of course, thinking one bit about that he would be nothing without the family name and the family business makes Donald Trump Jr. my schmuck of the week.
That guy had the best education money could buy. Didn't he go to Penn? I think.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
Yeah, and an absolute fucking idiot. I mean, he's
a complete moron.
Just an yes, you're right, a total moron. And I believe that the time will come, in the fullness of time, that we will be talking about Donald Jr.'s laptop, because I fully believe that he's a drug addict, but that's just me. So
cocaine.
Yeah,
cocaine.
Yeah,
it's a hell of a drug.
It is hell of a drug.
Well,
I think it's a warning for all siblings of presidents to hide your laptop.
Yeah,
there's something coming out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Go for the cloud. Go for the cloud. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Ed Sarpolus. Thank you for Joel Sklar. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And with the last word,
drive home safely.
Excellent. By the way, for those of you who weren't paying attention, thank you, Adolph Mongo, for joining us, who had to leave earlier. Saturday, 10 a.m. His podcast is Detroit in Black and White. You can catch it on the internet and via other podcast services. So please tune in for that, especially because it doesn't conflict with ours. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next.